All right, so I wanted to make a video kind of creating a bucket list idea for you when you're bike shopping for your next bike. This is going to apply for the guys looking for the first, second, third bike, newer to the game of buying bikes. This is to help you kind of figure out how to weight the buckets and not buy something that you regret buying or wish you got something else. And really just an idea of how you should kind of prioritize your shopping while you're looking, okay? One thing to note, I'm sitting on the kickstand side this time, so I won't knock my bike over. I learned my lesson. Two is that I'm going to make this a tier list video because it's more digestible and I just like tier list videos. So it's going to be a tier list video. What are we going to start with? We're going to start with cost. What do you think, right? S tier, of course. Wrong, it's a B tier. The problem if you only look at cost is that you are going to have this. This is one of the biggest things that will cause the FOMO of buying your next vehicle. Is if you are hard stuck, let's say you have 11K in your bank account ready to go for a bike and the next one is 11.5, the next one is 12, and that's the one that you really want, but it's outside of your budget, so you think you're being the responsible adult by buying the 11K, you're gonna regret it. You're gonna immediately, within a year, you're gonna go trade it, you're gonna eat the cost difference. You are not doing yourself any favors by hardballing exactly where your cap is on your purchase price, okay? And this goes the opposite direction as well. Don't buy something, don't have 14K in your bank account ready to go and then not even look at something that's 10K, not even look at something that's 9K, not even look at something that's 7, okay? That really applies to guys that are shopping for like the dual sports and stuff. Don't think that spending more is always going to be better and fit your niche better, okay? If you have 14K to go, do not make cost the don't let that be your priority. Don't let cost decide anything. Now, of course, it's still going to be a B tier because it's an actual limitation to what you can buy, right? But hopefully that makes sense. Next up is going to be brand. A tier, B tier, right? C tier. Don't get caught up in brand. Every manufacturer, minus Indian, is going to be producing really good bikes these days. If you're a Harley guy and you've only ridden Harleys, you've always wanted Harleys, don't let that be the limiting factor in you looking at other bikes when considering. If you still end up on the Harley, great, but don't get caught up in brand, okay? Brand loyalty with bikes is very weird in the sense that it's not like cars. Most people that have ridden for a long time have owned one of everything at some point, and that's one of the unique things of the bike scene versus kind of the car scene. But you still get people that pigeonhole themselves into thinking that I only ride Hondas, so I won't even consider anything else, or I only ride Harleys, I only ride American made, I only ride Kawasaki, I only ride whatever. Don't let that be too big of a factor in your purchasing of your next bike, okay? Think of it as, don't even think of it past that, right? Brand is just the name on the side. Okay, there's more important aspects to bikes to consider that are outside of the brand specifically, okay? Next up is going to be dealer proximity to you, okay? This is where brand can become extremely important. This is, I'm considering this its own thing. Dealer proximity to you means that the dealership where you are going to buy your bike is within 30 minutes. It is where you could drop it off after work and then pick it up after work the next day if it's needed. If there's warranty work, if you're having to do anything to it, first service, 10th service, Desmo, whatever, you want that dealership to be within 30 minutes of you. If it is past 30 minutes, we'll call, everyone's got different tolerances, but for me, if it's past 30 minutes, it's hitting a point where it is now cumbersome and going to actually take away from my day-to-day life to have to deal with maintenance on that thing. Whether it's a warranty, whether it's some issue, whether it's just maintenance, whether tires, whatever. If you don't have a dealer within 30 minutes of you, that is going to be extremely detrimental to the joy you get from that bike, right? So Aprilia in the States, for example, is one of the most famous for this. People buy an Aprilia, they go 2 hours up the road to buy it. They think this is great. Maintenance on it looks pretty cheap. But then they don't factor in the fact that when they have to get their oil done, they have to take it all the way up 2 hours. They got to take a day off work to deal with the thing. Oh, it's leaking fluid. Well, we got to tow it up 2 hours up the road to then take a day off to get it towed back and then hope it's working. Dealer proximity is extremely important for the convenience / just overall enjoyability you will have with that bike and being able to get it repaired. Do not, S tier, it's S tier, do not under any circumstance underestimate the importance of having a dealership that can fix something near you, okay? Next up is gonna be the look. S tier. I stand by this. I will be the one that dies on this hill every single time. If you don't like the look of the bike, you're never gonna love the bike, okay? And this can go to a point where you can love a bike that you don't really like just because of the way it looks, okay? So look at like a Harley Night Rod or V-Rod. They kind of suck. I mean, let's be honest, they're unique in their feel, but they kind of suck to ride. It's like turning a fucking cruise ship, but they look so cool that it's an awesome bike. Like I'd love a V-Rod if someone gave it to me. Looks is extremely important. If you are looking at bikes, if you're looking at the Kawasaki and you're looking at the Suzuki, and you really like the look of the Kawasaki, but the Suzuki has the better reviews and the Suzuki has the better this, and people on YouTube say the Suzuki is better, or like, let's say the Honda Hornet, it's a better example. Honda Hornet is getting all these rave reviews all over the place, but you just don't like how it looks. You like the look of the MT-07, you like the look of the Yamahas, you like the look of the Z650 for whatever reason. Get one of those. Don't think that the reviews pertain to you, right? If you don't like how it looks, you're never gonna love the bike. Okay, that's an S tier that can make or break your purchase on a bike. Do not try and buy a bike you don't like the look of and convince yourself that you're gonna like it. It will hurt you, and it just doesn't work out. It never works out for anyone. Okay, next up, we're gonna go to the weight, the actual physical weight of the bike. D tier. Not near as important as people like to think, not near as important as people online like to pretend it is when it becomes just the sticker weight on a bike does not tell you anything, okay? And the reason for this is, right, for example, and this is a point to Harley, Harleys weigh 800 pounds. But if you go sit on a Harley, because it is such a short seat, because the weight is so low within the chassis of the bike, it doesn't feel like 800 pounds. Like to me, a Panigale feels heavier than this R1, even though it's not. A CBR feels like the lightest weight in between the legs out of any of the 1000s, but it's not. An H2 feels exceptionally heavy because that weight is so high up on the bike. Even though it's 500 pounds, it feels exponentially heavier than even like a Hayabusa to me, okay? So weight is something that is on its sticker, on its face. When you're window shopping and looking at specs on a bike, don't pay too much attention to weight. Reality and sticker do not match up here. And realistically, you're looking at like 40 pounds, right? Like 40 pounds could be the difference between you're a guy that wears completely maxed out full leathers and, you know, ate a couple cheeseburgers extra versus the guy that whatever, right? It's not going to affect performance in the way that people pretend, because remember, you're sitting on the bike. If you weigh 220 and your friend weighs 180, there's a 40-pound difference right there. So don't get caught up in weight. Don't think that lighter weight equals better. Don't think that heavy equals bad, okay? There. Next, we're gonna go with the wheelbase. This is an A tier. Wheelbase is exceptionally important for the feel of a bike, but you have to keep in mind wheelbase, and this is where things get a little nitty-gritty, but wheelbase and then the actual specs of the tires can both play a part in the feel of a bike. Wheelbase is something that a bike with a 59-inch wheelbase and a 55-inch wheelbase will feel very different regardless of the tires. This can make the difference between, so this is where like an R1 55-inch wheelbase versus a CBR, which has a 57-inch, they feel a good bit different, right? Even though in pictures you'd think the CBR is the smaller, more flickable bike just in nature, just small chassis. It's not really how it rides, okay? Wheelbase is extremely detrimental to the way that a bike rides, the way it's going to feel, and it will change the fact if you're looking for a cruiser, you want a longer wheelbase. If you want something that is for long distance comfort on the highway, you're gonna want longer wheelbase. Okay, so if you're looking at 1 and 2, right, you're between cruisers, you're between sport tours, this one has a longer wheelbase that could vary over the span of 500 miles in a day. That extra 2-3 inches can make a very legitimate difference in your comfort and how much you're going to enjoy that bike for your use case, okay? It's gonna be an A tier. Next up, probably should have started with this, it's gonna be the class / the use case of the bike, okay? This is of course an S tier. This is going to be, do you want a sport bike? Do you want a super sport? Do you want a super aggressive bike? Do you want something that's just a fun all-arounder in the way of a naked? Do you want something that you can take off-road? Do you want something that is you can take off-road and be comfortable with? Do you want something that you want the attention of the other guys with, you know, bikes that Harley, right? Use case is exceptionally important, and that will make or break a bike for you. If you are going and you want a sport bike and you buy something else, you're going to be disappointed with everything else. You just will. You come from sport bikes and you like the performance and you like the way they ride and you like that seating position. It feels very different than if you go get on a naked, even if it's a hyper naked, right? It's not the same. It's not the same feel. That will make or break the bike for you. So etch in exactly where you want to shop within what class, right? So when you're shopping, figure out what class you want to look at, where you want to focus class-wise. Nail that in. That's going to be an S tier. That's going to be a make or break. Okay. So next up is going to be seat height. We're going to slap that in a D tier. Okay. Reason being, seat height on paper means very little to reality. Where the weight sits in the bike, the actual width of the seat, so how wide that seat is makes a huge difference in how close you are to the ground with your legs splayed open while you're sitting on the bike. And then of course, you can buy a lowering link. Every bike has a lowering link available. Every bike has a $300 solution like that. So if you just absolutely love the Panigale, just love it, but you're a 5'2" and you were just not comfortable with the Panigale's seat height and that just really tall feeling seat, buy a lowering link. It's $300. It's not going to, your seat height should never impact your purchasing, and it should never compare if you are going to, let's say, remove a KLR. Let's say we have a GS, a Honda Africa Twin, and whatever Ducati's is that I always forget the name of. We're not going to line those up and then decide which one has the best seat height for us. It doesn't matter, okay? It truly does not matter. Seat height is a superficial number that's never going to play out in reality to what that number says, okay? D tier, don't even look at the seat height. Like I promise it really does not matter. Go sit on the bike and see if it fits you. And if you really like it in all other aspects, you get the lowering link and you keep going about your day, okay? So next up, we got our look, right? We love the look of the bike. It's an S tier, but it comes in a couple different colors. I'm an impulsive individual. Do I settle with a color that's okay, but I don't really love it? No. The color of the bike is gonna be an S tier. Do not settle with the color that you don't like the best out of the lineup because that bike is available right that moment. Okay, this is another make or break for you that will prevent you from regretting that bike a year down the line, wishing that you had waited that extra month or two a year ago to get the exact bike you wanted. Color of the bike is very important. Make sure it is the one that you like, and this also plays in part too. If you love the look of a bike but you just despise the colors, it's going to be the same thing. You're not going to manipulate yourself into thinking that you just love the whatever color it is, right? It's just not going to happen. Color is very important. All right, so next up, and this is, keep in mind, this is coming from someone who's a sport bike rider primarily. Horsepower, we're going to slap that as a C tier, okay? Reason being, horsepower on its face, right? What it says on paper, again, does not matter as much as the bike itself and a couple other factors, okay? Horsepower should never really be the determining factor if you're shopping for a bike. So, as an example, if you are looking at the Ninja 650, the CBR, and the Aprilia, why am I forgetting, 660. You're looking at those, right? And you're seeing the Aprilia has 100 horsepower. You're seeing that the Ninja 650 has 65, and you're seeing that whatever I said in the middle was at 80, I think, but I can't remember. Doesn't matter, okay? Don't look at horsepower on paper and assume that that's going to play out how the bike rides in reality, and don't think it's really going to matter in terms of your overall happiness with the bike, okay? And again, this is, I know, very stupid coming from someone who likes these, but don't get too caught up in that number, okay? In the same fashion with these, if a bike is 195 horsepower versus 197 versus 199 versus 203 versus 208, you're never going to know the difference, okay? Start dieting, and if you lose weight, you'll get more power out of that bike by having less weight on the bike than you will ever by a 5 horsepower difference. Don't get too caught up in it. The reason it's a C tier is this is still something to consider, right? It's going to go into the class of the bike. It's going to go into the exact form and all function of the bike that you're expecting. It's still important, but it shouldn't be something that you put so high on a pedestal that it eliminates other bikes and prevents you from looking at them. On that same note, torque. It's going to be another C tier as well, okay? Torque is something that cruiser guys have a kind of on a pedestal. This is something that it just doesn't really, it's the same thing as horsepower. It doesn't really matter. On paper is very different than reality. And then also there's the intricacy of the actual torque curve itself, which every bike is different, and depending on what dyno they use, depending on how you're, and this is something you have to be very careful of if you're shopping as well and you're not, you hadn't looked at tons of dynos over time, is looking at the power force curve on a bike. And this one has a range from 10,000 to, or let's say 0 to 100 for easy, right? 0 to 100. And the next dyno chart you look at starts at 30 and it goes up to 80. That's going to completely change the function, the shape of that graph. You have to be very careful with how you're reading them. It's just not that important of a factor. Don't get too caught up in torque. C tier, right? Again, it's important for your use case potentially, but it's not, it shouldn't be the deciding factor if this bike has 5, 10, 15 foot-pound, pound-foot, whichever way, of torque, okay? Now, what does matter is going to be the horsepower to torque ratio. That's going to be an S tier. And that's going to be something that will help you determine, and this is of course going to fall into the class of bike, but this will help you determine exactly if a bike fits what you're looking for and what you're hoping for, okay? And I have a whole, this is one of my old videos that explains this, but it's the horsepower to torque ratio, which is where you're taking horsepower and you're dividing it by the torque number, and then you're looking at that from there, okay? So if this bike, so an Aprilia has, I believe it's 100 horsepower, 50 foot-pound of torque. I believe that's right. So it's a 2. That's going to be a bike that winds out. That's going to have a completely different character than an MT-09, which is a 100 horsepower, don't quote me on this, I think 70 torque, right? That ratio will be very important. Now, of course, not down to the actual number itself, but this, right, 100 over 50 is a very different bike than 100 over 80. Or 80 over 80, or 80 over 60, okay? Just the ride, the actual power band, all of that is going to be very, very different. You have to look at this instead of the actual engine configuration itself, because this is going to tell you more about the actual engine characteristics of the bike itself, right? My Honda 750 rides very different than an MT-07, very different. Torque, even on the horsepower to torque range, they're pretty similar, but right, if you're taking the ratio, torque is higher on the MT-07 relative to the Honda. The Honda is going to have a little higher horsepower to torque ratio. It winds out more, and you can see this on paper. You can definitely feel this when you actually ride the thing, okay? S tier, that one's important. That one's one to familiarize yourself with, and even if you've owned a couple bikes, look at them, look at their ratios, look at what you've test ridden, and kind of put that ratio up to spec, and you can get feels for it. Same line of thinking, we're going to move over to engine configuration, right? Engine configuration is going to be 1 cylinder, 2 cylinder, 3, 4, V-twin, P-twin, B tier. Okay, it's important to know, but don't let it get caught up in what you end up buying. Okay, it's important, but I don't think it should be a true make or break. And because going back to the Aprilia 660, where it is it's a P-twin, but nothing about that bike rides like a P-twin. Nothing about that bike feels like a P-twin. It doesn't ride like a P-twin. It's completely out of character. It rides like a triple. The reason I say it's a B tier is that engine configuration does not tell you exactly how that bike is going to ride. It's not near as much of a tell as people will tell you, with the only caveat being inline fours are going to ride like inline fours. Everything else, right, there is too much difference between A, B, and C, even if they're the exact same configuration, that you could really tell anything by looking at them on a piece of paper or looking at them while they're sitting there and how they're going to ride, okay? It's a B tier. It's important to know, it's important to understand what you're looking for, but it's also not something that should eliminate a 3-cylinder for you if you love P-twins, or if you love 3 cylinders and you hate P-twins, that Aprilia might still be exactly what you want, right? It's important to know it shouldn't be any true deciding factor anywhere. for the most part. Okay, so it's going to be a B tier. Next up is going to be the preconceived notions / online opinions that you're going to see all over the place on certain bikes, right? This is going to be all Harleys are horrible, dog shit, rattle, super vibrating, uncomfortable, slow bikes. This is going to be all Aprilias light on fire and explode. This is going to be all Gixxers suck and their riders suck and they're horrible and whatever. It's going to be Ninja 650s or boats that feel horrible and they suck for riding. Okay. When you're new and you haven't been around bikes for a long time, you don't understand, one, that a lot of these things were jokes that people ended up taking seriously, like people tend to do, where like Gixxer riders, for example, starts off as a joke of those guys were suicidal. They had a very famous tendency back in the day, cheaper bike at the time, whatever. Reality, we're 4 generations, 5 generations removed from when it got that legacy. Same with the Ninja 650. People talk shit about them all day long. Since I've moved down here, I see more Ninja 650s on the road than any other bike. I will 100%, I see more Ninja 650s than anything else, okay? It's a great bike, it really is. It's a really, really, really good bike for 90% of people's use case. Don't get caught up in that, F tier, okay? Whatever you have that's a preconceived, that you think Hondas are boring, anything of that sort, consider it an online joke of people that may or may not have any experience with what they're talking about, and it's trash, right? All right, so next up is going to be the actual tech package of a bike. This is something that is going to be very dependent. One, just know old school guys hate tech, new guys love tech and are scared to say it, and this is going to be very class dependent, right? So if you're looking for a dual sport, a smaller dual sport, the tech package doesn't really matter to you, right? You're going to be beating on the thing and it's more things that could go wrong, versus if you're going and buying a 600 or 1000, something that you may potentially track or ride like you're learning to ride, track around, whatever you're doing. You want something with a very high-end tech package, because that could be the difference between you making it around that corner versus that little bit of accidental throttle you put in that if you didn't have the tech package would go and you're gone, right? Tech package is very important. To me, it's very, as a sport bike rider, I have it as an A tier. If you are someone who this is going to be kind of the toss-up one. If you are a dirt rider, if you're looking for a dual sport, you're looking for whatever, like, you're going to have this as an F tier. It just truly does not matter to you in the same way. So that one's kind of an up in the air for you to decide wherever you land. To me, tech, street riding, for street purposes, tech is very important, and it is very good to go when you're looking at reviews and you're reading reviews, understand what people say about the tech package, whether it's the ABS, is it good, is it bad, does it suck, the traction control, does it work, is it good, is it too proactive, is it too reactive, how does it suck, lift control, whatever you're looking at on the bike, the actual IMU, right? So if I lean over and I accidentally add throttle, how responsive is that throttle, how quickly does it turn on, all that. You'll find every single bike that has these features will have just tons of forum posts outlining the specifics of the electronics. Guarantee you, they'll be there. You'll find them. I think it's important. I have it as an A tier. Next up is going to be the insurance cost, okay? S tier. Don't buy a bike that you can't afford to insure. This is, if you ever talk to dealers, this is one of the things, this is what breaks the majority of sport bike purchases. Young guy goes in, he's got this money saved up, he's so excited to buy his first 1000, buy his first 600, buy whatever. And then when they go and they're sitting there and they're doing this paperwork, and they go and try and buy insurance on the thing, they can't afford it, right? They're getting back $5,000 quotes. They're getting back just crazy quotes. The only thing they can do if they're financing it is not buy the bike or pay cash up front, and then they're getting minimum coverage on their bike that, you know, if they drop it, they can't afford to fix it, right? I've mentioned this before, like insurance, the importance of insurance and the ability for you to afford what happens if you don't have it are an unfortunately in tandem sliding scale. So insurance cost is exceptionally important. You're going to be paying it every year, or if you pay monthly, you're going to be paying it every month, right? And insurance, just those little nickel and dimes feelings can really just ruin how much you enjoy a vehicle, especially if this is really the main reason I do it on a yearly basis. It's just one gut punch versus doing it every month where it's like you get slapped every time. Insurance is something you're going to have to pay. It's going to be potentially very expensive depending on the class you're looking for. Do not skip looking for insurance quotes before you step in that dealership to go buy that bike. Okay, this will make or break. It's an S. Lastly, then we're done. This will be the tier list. I'm sure I forgot a ton of important things, but hey, we're gonna go with the maintenance cost. And this is gonna be where I mentioned earlier, the actual brand is not as important as some of the other things that come in line with the bike. So brand, bike, maintenance costs do not always equal out, okay? Reason being is that a Suzuki, so your standard Suzuki versus a Gixxer 1000, your Yamaha MT-07, which you could throw off a cliff, you could spit on the chain, you could piss on it, you could leave it out, you could throw it in a fire, right? You could loop the thing 10 times in a parking lot, it's just never gonna die. R1, right? Maintenance cost, very expensive relative to pretty much any other Japanese bike. At least as far as I'm aware, this is the most expensive. Maybe the CBR 1000 RRRRR is more expensive, probably is, but this is an expensive maintenance bike. Okay, this is a Yamaha, this is the exact same manufacturer as the MT-07, but if I'm going from an MT-07 to an R1, this could be a shockingly unfortunate little purchase I just made when it comes to getting this thing replaced, how often I'm gonna have to go through chains, how often my tires are gonna get burned through, how often the cost of the actual throttle bodies, which people still get mad about every time I mention, right? One of my favorite comments, just real quick, one of my favorite comments I've gotten on since I've started my channel was an individual calling me an idiot who didn't have a damn clue what he was talking about with the cost of maintenance on his R1, because he owned an R1 and he pays $60 for whatever, and he does it all at home. You don't have to touch the throttle bodies, blah, 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 blah. He also mentioned that his engine blew up at 23K. Like, I love that. It's so hilariously ironic that it was such an aggressive comment and they still didn't even catch their engine blew up, but whatever. Maintenance cost is going to be very different bike to bike to bike. It is important, okay? Because nothing sucks, nothing will suck the life or the fun out of a bike more than having to just keep pissing money at it. I mean, it really does suck. That is where these types of bikes, if you are used to having something that you can just kind of not care about, you can do the oil once a year, you can, you don't really pay attention to the miles when it comes to the services. A 1000, a true sport bike is not going to be for you. It's not going to be an enjoyable experience. Like, this could very well make or break a bike for you. In the same way that like a Suzuki, like any of the dual sport Suzukis, maintenance optional, light it on fire, leave it in the desert for a year, come back to it, right? Who cares? That's a huge selling point for them. So we're going to put maintenance cost as an A tier, because it can be extremely detrimental to your joy of the bike depending on how much you have to spend keeping that little guy running. Okay, and I thought of one last one. I don't know how I didn't have this on my list, but I got one last one for you as the send away here, and that's going to be the overall comfort of the bike. How comfortable is it? How perfectly does it fit your ergonomics? How perfectly does it fit your legs, your feet, your hands, whatever? How comfortable is that bike to you? How important is that to you and when you're bike shopping, right? So if I'm looking at the Speed Triple and it fits me a little bit better than the MT-09, where should I weight that in the bucket? Comfort, again, sport bike rider, I'm not the best person for this. I'm gonna put it as a C tier, okay? If everything else that we've listed that's higher than the comfort is met, the comfort will not matter to you because you'll be happier that you have that rather than bending on any of the S categories or the A categories. I think there's only one or two, but whatever, right? Comfort will be less of a determinant on how much you enjoy a bike as a whole than you think. This is something that, again, I've gone through more bikes than I should. And as someone who used to really focus on comfort, used to really focus on making sure that I got the bike that felt like it fit perfect, that felt like I just loved sitting on it, and it was more important to me than how it looked. It was more important to me than the just overall feeling the bike gave me, just the overall, butterflies, whatever, just the figures in itself of how it rides, all of that. Comfort was something that I prioritized too high, and it also led me to buy bikes that I did not enjoy outside of they were comfortable, right? Of course, that's going to, if you're a sport touring guy, it's probably going to matter a little more to you, but I'm going to throw it in as a C tier. I don't think it should make or break a bike in the same way that some of the other categories do. It's important, yes, of course, don't buy something that completely sucks and just completely does not fit you. Well, okay, we'll move it up to a B tier. I changed my mind. We'll move it to a B tier. It's important. It's absolutely important, but it should not be something that is going to break you from looking at one of the S categories, right? If something, think of it there. We're just going to leave it as B tier. That's a lot of rambling here, just sitting on a bike, but I hope this helps. I hope this is somewhat digestible rather than people just rattling off a bunch of bullshit, which is still what I did, but we'll have cute little graphics going at the same time. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.